Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It must be tough to be an authoritarian. You promise everybody in the world to get elected. Prices will go down on day one. No more inflation. We're going to end Russia's war on Ukraine. The world's going to respect us. And then you get in, and even though you inherit an economy from your predecessor that's described as the envy of the world by The Economist magazine, you crash everything. The economy today is shrinking. The stock market is sinking. Inflation is soaring. $7 trillion in American retirements and wealth has been destroyed. You've plunged us with your imbecilic tariffs into a trade war with the whole world, except, of course, for your bosom buddies in Russia. So now, only 100 days in, with 100 unforced policy blunders, you're the most unpopular president at this point in your presidency in more than 80 years. Barack Obama stood at 69% in the polls. Ronald Reagan was at 73% in the polls. Truman was 87%, and Franklin D. Roosevelt, 68%. But Donald Trump is at 39%, the lowest 100-day approval rating since polling began. He controlled the agenda for 100 days. He controlled the House. He controlled the Senate. He's got everything going for him, and his numbers are in the gutter. So now he reaches back into the authoritarian playbook. Go back and please the wealthiest people and corporations in the country. House Republicans want to cut hundreds of billions of dollars from Medicaid, food assistance for mothers and children, veterans benefits, Meals on Wheels, Head Start, any programs that help actual people, all in order to pay for another gargantuan tax break for the president's billionaire benefactors. And here in the Judiciary Committee, our good friends want to help Donald Trump use his power in violation of the Constitution that we are all sworn to uphold and defend against enemies, foreign and domestic. Every day, the administration uses immigration enforcement as a template to erode constitutional rights and liberties. They round up people in the street and disappear them to the torture prison of a foreign dictator without 1 minute of due process, sweeping up completely innocent people who have no criminal record and no criminal charges, in the midst of other people who may have criminal records and criminal charges and should stand prosecution for them if they do have charges against them. They're stripping college and graduate students at American universities of their visas for writing op-eds that the administration disagrees with. They invoke emergency wartime powers like the Alien Enemies Act to fight a military invasion at the border while telling us that the border has never been safer than it is right now. My colleagues say all these measures are necessary to deport gang members, violent criminals, the worst of the worst. But they're not targeting the worst of the worst. They're arresting judges now. They're using federal agents to round up law-abiding members of the community with no criminal records, parents of American children, husbands and wives of American spouses, people who've not been shown to pose any public safety threat at all. They're breaking into cars to arrest mothers as their children's watch in terror. They're arresting people who are coming in for their citizenship interviews. They're staking out people's homes and trolling through IRS taxpayer data in search of tax-paying people to deport. Look, we know how to remove people from the country who should not be here. President Biden's administration did that. We know how to do it legally, consistent with the Bill of Rights and the Constitution. But the Trump administration has discarded the rule of law. If he can sweep non-citizens off the street and fly them to a torturer's prison in El Salvador with no due process, he can do it to citizens too. Because if there's no due process, if there's no fair hearing, you've got no opportunity to object. And indeed, several American citizen children, including one with cancer, were flown to Honduras last week with no due process, as a Trump-appointed judge in Louisiana found. Now the courts have issued more than 95 preliminary injunctions and temporary restraining orders against this reign of lawlessness. But Republicans want to enable President Trump to keep going. This Judiciary Committee bill seeks to strip the courts of their power to hold an administration in contempt when the president violates explicit judicial court orders. And it doesn't stop there. While they try to defund the courts, They're forking over an astonishing $81 billion to the administration for more of these immigration roundups. The legislation includes a whopping $45 billion for ICE on top of its annual budget of $9 billion for family and adult detention centers alone. This bill is a blank check to the administration to do more of what we've already seen. And to make matters worse, as they race to spend more than $81 additional billion on this, Trump's own DOJ is terminating hundreds of millions of dollars in existing grants. They're cutting funding for county, state, and local law enforcement. They're cutting funding for opioid addiction treatment programs. They're cutting funding for crime prevention, and they're cutting funding for victims of rape, sexual assault, and violent crimes. The grants being cut support local police in solving and preventing crime. They help the survivors of abuse and assault navigate the legal system, and yet they're being wiped out by the Department of Justice. They're also trying to handcuff the agencies that work to make sure our food and drugs are safe and our air and water are clean. The RAINS Act is buried in here. It would prevent the government from enforcing our civil rights, protecting workplace safety, and guarding against misconduct by banks. It would require both houses of Congress and the president to approve every major rule from our agencies to take effect, virtually guaranteeing no effective regulatory action on any subject. They've also tucked the Midnight Rules Relief Act in here, which would allow Republicans to bundle hundreds of regulations all together into a single package and vote them down on a single jumbo resolution, which would be used to hide the most destructive deregulatory votes among dozens of others, completely burying it in darkness. Look, this version of an authoritarian America is not what the American people want. Please take note. This is why Donald Trump's polling numbers are in the gutter and an historic low. This is not what the American people are looking for. We urge our colleagues to walk back from the brink here to support many amendments we plan to offer today that will save us money, that will actually address the real problems of the country, and that will protect the constitutional rights and freedoms that we cherish so much in America. This is a test. Are we going to stand up for the majority of the American people, for our Constitution and our Bill of Rights and the freedoms we fought for, or are we going to stand with a president who wants to throw it all away? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Clear and build on what Mr. Lynch is saying here. First of all, this is just preserving the existing programs that Americans are already depending on and are speaking loud and clear. In fact, the polling shows this week that 2/3 of Americans are completely opposed to the cuts that Doge and Elon Musk have put on these programs. And I hear people in this chamber every single day trying to claim that they're not impacting real Americans, that these are just paid protesters. Well, let me tell you, I was in community after community in my district over the last couple of weeks, and I had people show up crying, people saying that their cancer treatments could be terminated if Medicaid goes away, people who say they will lose everything. They will not be able to put a roof over their head or food on the table if these cuts go through. People who are frightened by what they see is the absolute attack on their civil liberties and free speech and their freedom. And I actually went to the Social Security office in my district last week and was denied entry and told to call a regional office after I had an appointment, and spoke to people who are waiting, who have literally been waiting for days and weeks because Elon Musk has crashed the Social Security system, firing people. Their computer systems are down. Our call centers are completely overwhelmed, and people cannot get appointments for months. This is what's happening in America right now. And that is why I introduced this amendment, to protect those programs and to fight for the American people and to fight for the programs that we know they depend on so that they can survive. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Green.
Hi. I'd like to point something out that our Democrat colleagues know this, because they did reconciliation before when they were in charge. And you know, it may be hard for some of the freshman Dems to understand, but this is not a policy debate. That's not what reconciliation is. This is a budget process. And so for the American people watching at home, our Democrat colleagues are sitting here trying to score points and spread more lies and divisiveness about Republicans in order to spread more garbage across the country. But this is about budget, Mr. Chairman, and this committee is trying to do serious work, and we need to stay focused on budget, and that's for the American people. And it is very serious that's what we remain focused on here in our work on oversight. And the Democrats know that provisions must be carefully crafted because they did it before, and it has to be scored by CBO to be included in this budget bill. And that's what we're trying to do, Mr. Chairman, and I just wanted to point that out for the people watching at home so they are not swayed by this entertainment today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes Mr. Lynch.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I just want to say our federal budget reflects our values. When we fund the VA, so it's not just about numbers. It's about the mission and the purpose of our budget.
With all due respect, you do understand our federal budget is $2.5 trillion in
Reclaiming
debt.
my time, though.
I know,
I'm just saying,
but our values, we
reclaiming my
can't
time,
have
Mr.
values
Chairman,
where we
you don't get to just interject, Mr. Chairman.
You know what? I
When
think you've already spoken, so
I
you're
have
out
not
of order.
spoken on this. I borrowed on somebody else's time.
All right, go ahead.
I borrowed somebody else's time, and I will speak.
Well,
And
speak.
this
You all have
budget
put
does
you all
reflect
have put our
values.
country
It
in
does-
debt.
does
In debt.
reflect
Kids are
values.
graduating from
You're
college.
about to put our
with
country in
debt.
$4 trillion more debt.
I don't think you all could find $1 billion
on.
in savings.
Come
You don't
on.
care about the
Come on.
Congressional Budget Office scores because you
Mr.
don't care
Chairman,
what anything
reclaiming my
costs. You
time.
just want to spend
Reclaiming my time.
hard-working American taxpayers' money.
I asked to
Give
restore
him
the
5
time.
minutes. You can talk all you want. I want everyone in America to see how much
Mr.
opposition
Chairman,
you all have to.
You're out of
trying to
order.
get the-
You're out
get
of order.
fiscal
Your own
here. Go
chairman,
ahead,
and you're
go
out
ahead,
of
go
order.
ahead, Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Now, without interruption, what we decide here in the budget is the point I'm trying to make is it's not just dollars and cents. It's about where that money goes and what purposes and what priorities it reflects. And those, governing is about making decisions, and we choose to fund things that in this country we have honored for a very long time, and that, I have to say, in my 25 years in Congress, we have had very little disagreement on funding veterans' benefits. I have to say that. I don't think I could count on one hand the time we had disagreements over 25 years when we talk about how do we care for our veterans, things like that. And I miss that because now we're fighting tooth and nail about whether we're going to lay off 80,000 employees at the VA. What I'm saying is that, sure, it's about the budget, but underlying that budget is our priorities as a country, what we consider to be worthwhile. And I feel that veterans' benefits are worthwhile. Veterans' health care is worthwhile. The way we treat our federal employees is important. It is intrinsic to the work of the federal government and how we help the most vulnerable as well as average everyday Americans on Social Security, on Medicaid. So I've had layoffs recently in one of my big health centers, community health centers, laid off 60 people in a city that can't afford that. And that's because of decisions that are being made on the budget, on the numbers on the budget. We're going to cut over $800 billion on Medicaid. I've got nursing homes. So I got seniors who are, they can't go out and get another job. They're in nursing homes. Their families are trying to care for them. We're cutting 40% of the income for those long-term care nursing homes for elderly are being impacted by the numbers in this budget. And that's very troublesome. So I'm just saying that this is different. The gentlelady from Georgia is correct. I've been through reconciliation before. I know how this process works, and it is about numbers. And I agree with that point. But this is different. This reconciliation is going after things that have been long respected and honored in this country. And we are changing our ideals and our commitments to people like our own veterans, they want to pull benefits from federal employees. And again, the numbers behind this all, the general purpose here, as you know, Mr. Chairman, is to make a tax cut possible. So we're going to increase the debt. We are. That's the plan here. We're going to increase the debt by, I think, at least $4 trillion, based on what we're looking at right now. And to justify that, we're cutting all this. We're cutting people who, veterans' benefits are different. They're different. They're different and they're special because veterans' benefits are for courageous service previously rendered. We owe this. We owe those benefits. Those wounded veterans lying in VA hospitals all across this country, your state and mine, we owe them for their service. They have delivered. Every one of them, by definition, every veteran who's eligible for this has honorably served this country in uniform, put their life on the line for the benefit of us all. We made a commitment to them. We said, if you come back with wounds, visible or invisible, we will take care of you. We made that promise. Multiple generations of Americans have made that promise. And this budget, these numbers, breach that promise. We break that promise in this bill. First time ever, at least in the 25 years I've been here. Mr. Chairman, thank you for your courtesy, and I yield back.